Hello and welcome back for our last match together with Rogue Delver. We are on the play again and have a bit of a land-heavy hand, but fortunately it's 3 lands and a free stone rain, so gonna keep this one. Our Force Will not so great right now, no other blue cards, but we do have Mongoose and the ability to grind a bit. So that is what we're going to do. Obviously what we would love is for someone to just like open on dual land pass, but can't have everything that we want. So we're gonna probe them, see what's up. It looks like our opponent is playing some kind of blue-red landstill deck. Blue, Volk, Strand, Brainstorm, Vendilion, Jace. So we're going to hold on to these bolts. They're actually both quite valuable. And just work on protecting our Mongoose from Vendilion Click. And Mongoose has built-in protection from Jace, so we're good. So they played Strand. So this seems like a deck where Pyroblast is just going to be bananas good. And where we might actually side out some number of Wastelands, because cutting them off of mana isn't great, but cutting them off of spells seems fine. So they could have any number of things here. Well, it looks like they're on Miracles. Which is really bad for us because we're mana screwed. Well, I mean mana flooded, but still. We will happily wasteland them here. So we can get 5 cards into our graveyard here, right? 1, 2. So we could get 6, but we're still not thresholding our Mongoose, so doesn't make sense to move in. And I'm fine committing a Tarmogoyf here. Yeah. Our opponent doesn't for sure have white mana. And didn't have a Terminus at last check. So it might just be that they topped into white mana, in which case holding the Terminus for more value looks awesome for them right now, but as it stands, I think our job is, so we've got We've got this chain lightning. That's going upstairs. So, top nothing, fetch, get a basic plains, top again, and now they're in range of our days, which is awesome. So we're going to bolt them all the way down to 3 and pass with days and force and hope that our days on their Jace is good enough. So I think we're just going to hard cast this days. And yeah. The reason we hard cast it is because if we draw a land, then we can draw a land, play it, and like if they force it, I mean they're still dead actually. But the thought process was draw a land, play it, and have force up in our next upkeep. But regardless, we have played against Miracles before, as you will remember from last week where we played it a bunch. So, cards that come out, all of the red ones, and Wasteland. Cards that come in, Pyroblasts, Sylvan Library, Crows and Grips. Vendilion Click we didn't have last week, but we are very happy to have it here. It works similarly to a Stifle against Miracles. So, with the Miracle trigger on the stack, the way that you put... The cost of putting a Miracle trigger on the stack is you reveal the card in your hand. So you just, like, show it to them, right? And you have to, like, keep showing it to them. But it's definitely in your hand. So you Vendilion Click them, they reveal the rest of their hand, and you're like, I want that card. And they're like, what card? And you're like, the one that you're miracling right now. And they're like, okay, so they put that on the bottom of their library. The trigger resolves, and it can't find the miracle card anywhere, so it says, oh well, must not have been that miraculous. So, from there, play proceeds as normal, and even if you click them into another miracle, it's the second card that they drew that turn. So, no dice there as well. So, all in all, a pretty good way to sort of attack Jace, fight through a Terminus, fight through and entreat the Angels, and play how you want to against Miracles, which is with all of your mana untapped. So this one is quite good. We've got a bunch of geese, which, you know, always strong. So, gonna kick things off by goosing them. No top means the possibility of a counterbalance on 2, but can't really mulligan for that. Like, with that in mind, I mean. So we could play another Mongoose, but I'm actually fine just playing a Wasteland and passing and seeing what our opponent does. Since I'm fine having the game progress a little further. I assume this is where they break with their fetch lands. For, like, plains and island. But yeah, I would definitely fetch basics if I were them. And the issue with having, like, the 4-creature hand is that we're actually just going to get sweepered for 2 creatures, play another 2 creatures, and they'll take over the game with a more powerful card, because we aren't fighting them. I am also fine with how this turned out. Very, very happy that they can't get a basic plains. Or that they chose not to get a basic plains and now can no longer. Ah, well. That explains quite a bit. So they get Batterskull, and we are a little behind the 8 ball. I think we have to ponder here, but we desperately need a blue source. We don't find it, so we're probably going to have to shuffle. Yeah, don't really want these. We sure would. And now our opponent has an opening to activate Stoneforge Mystic main phase and just get Batterskull down before we have the ability to stifle. So this is exactly why Stoneforge Mystic is so good against Rug, is, you know, if you cut all your bolts, then suddenly at 1-2 is actually quite formidable. Also meaningful is that we drew several Wastelands against a draw that opened on basic island, which is, you know, more evidence for why you don't want 4 Wastelands in your deck against Miracles. But yeah, if I were them, I would for sure just activate Mystic main. So here's the thing. I was going to say I really want to like bluff attack here, but if they just block with Mystic, then our Mongoose dies, and then they activate it and we stifle, and then we're just dead. If we pass and we stifle the living weapon trigger, which is what we would do, then they have to pick it up and replay it, breaking both their fetch lands. So yeah, I think that's what we have to do. Yeah, this Mystic is exactly what we didn't want to see, because it forces us to play a more constrained game. Also forcing us to play a more constrained game is our 1 blue source this game. That's not quite good. I mean, if our opponent wants to violin batter skull on our main phase, then I will happily stifle it and attack. I just have trouble believing that that's a line that they could arrive at. Especially since I'm real interested in stifling the living weapon trigger. So, stifle the trigger that creates the germ. Hope that they don't have a 5th land to just equip Batter Skull and go large. They do. And I'm honestly a little surprised that they didn't just attack us for 5 lifelink points of damage. That's surprising to me. So I think we're going to force this pitching Daze. Daze doesn't seem great here. And of course we're going to get punished. Yes, with a 1-mana counter. Yup. So we've got 4 creatures in our hand, which is the pits. Fortunately, we can just attack Jace and force the chump with Stoneforge Mystic, but it's still not ideal. We've got 5 creatures in our hand. We may as well start playing them. Our opponent paused in their draw step, so I'm not really sure what their angle is. They're also fate sealing us. Not really using their Jace in a way that... Well, not using their Batter Skull, really. Like, they're now at the point where... Like, their Batter Skull isn't very good. It's just in play. So they're going to Fate Seal us twice, and... we're going to get their Jace off the board. Which is a little weird. Alright, this makes more sense. So we are not so much with... Wait, they let us keep... Oh, Fate Sealed and then we drew a land. Cool. Yeah, I think we still attack Jace. Because that way, if they unsummon our Tarmogoyf, then... Oh, well. They definitely cannot do a ton of damage to our hand. They cycled one of our 3 Tarmogoyfs, which is awesome, because we were never going to be able to play all 3. And instead of brainstorming, our opponent has been Fate Sealing us, which, like, yeah, but also, nah. I also would have loved to see them pick up Better Skull there. Also, at some point, we're going to get to Crows and Grip this thing, right? Like, that's how the story ends. I swear to God, this has to be how the story ends. So we're going to stifle this Flooded Strand. So definitely playing this Tarmogoyf. And then stifling Flooded Strand so that our opponent can't either pick up Batterskull or have a 5th land. Which is actually fairly important. Finally. They are all about the 0 ability. Which is really just the best ability. For being real here. And this thing is getting spell snared. That card is too good against us. I have to imagine that, like, the last 2 cards are both counter spells. Jesus, what are they holding? And now, like, with an enchantment in the graveyard, we just get to attack through a Batterskull. Not that matters when you draw a Crows and Grip, but still. So we attack Jace. Our opponent blocks. We get to Vendilion click their Terminus. ideally. Our mileage may vary. So, gonna target them. Ah, plow click, sure. So, Terminus gets out. So they have plow click and you know, 4 unknown cards, 2 of which they're putting back. So they can just like plow Tarmogoyf and click away our Crozen Grip, I guess. Yeah. So Tarmogoyf's a farmer now. And they resolve Vendilion Click. They take our Crozen Grip, which we really wanted. And we get a Brainstorm and a Fetch Land next turn. And they have Jace plus Counterbalance, which tends to be pretty good, but we are finally drawing the lands part of our deck, so not great for us. Ooh, yeah, also fetching their before they activated Jace is pretty loose. Really, really loose. I mean, it gives us an extra, like, card that, you know, whatever. They reveal Terminus. We look at their empty hand. We know that Terminus is still there and that we're not very interested in countering anything. Gonna go ahead and Pyroblast this Jace, since that's the only really big thing keeping us out of this game. And we don't play Delver. And I swear to God, if they don't activate Batterskull, okay. At some point, though, they're going to find a Sensei's Divining Top because they play some of those. They've revealed Detention Sphere, which, you know, an alright card. So we are going to plan on protecting our Delver with Force of Will. They have Terminus and Detention Sphere in their hand. They finally free roll their counterbalance. I guess we're kind of fine open wastelanding their volcanic island. I'm not sure what red cards they could have that we care about, but I don't think we're necessarily going to need a 6th land. And this, like, protect a Delver thing isn't going to do a ton. Yeah. Like, if they drew Reb here, then it makes us look like gosh darn geniuses for wastelanding the red source. Alright, we have one more turn at drawing Crows and Grip. What do you say? That sort of works. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it sort of does. So if they have a 2, then, like, we can't really beat it, because we need this Pyroblast for the detention sphere that they may have. Okay, so they flip Snapcaster Mage, and we die. And the next card is Detention Sphere. It is 2 Crows and Grips, obviously. Literally both Crows and Grips were the next 2 cards, so that's adorable. So yeah, gonna send this one right back on in. I think that we just had a really rough early game, and so our cards didn't exactly develop the way we wanted them to. So we're going to keep this one. We have no threat, but I'm actually fine because we have so much disruption. That we can max value all of our disruptive spells. So we're gonna play some lands. Float a mana, Daze top is really nice because it represents 2 stifles, and then they have to play into it because really, how could you not just try and call that? And then it turns out that we do have both stifles, so like that's a little embarrassing. So like we get to induce based on like what they're doing. We get to put back 2 lands and probe them. And they have Tundra, Strand, Mystic, Verdict, Terminus. Tundra, Strand, Mystic, Terminus, Verdict. Brainstorm. Yeah, I'm not really interested in just cycling. I think that having information is valuable. and I'm interested in snaring this Stoneforge Mystic. So now we get to see what they drew. It's a click. So strand, click, verdict, terminus, brainstorm. So we can Vendilion click their Vendilion click is, I think, the play that we're after here. We definitely have more green cards than red cards, so we're going to click main phase, get theirs, and not risk any sort of drawn counterspell. Huh. So they draw and play counterbalance. I think I'm fine forcing this one. I don't want to let them set up brainstorm plus counterbalance. And they don't have any more lands, so it's very realistic that they can't play verdict for a few turns. And at the point where they can play verdict, we certainly don't want to be sitting under a counterbalance with no pressure. And we are for sure countering this, since we don't want to give them any more looks at a land, and it lets them set up their terminus, which they just naturally drew anyway. Alright. Well, they have verdict and terminus. And an unknown card. If their unknown card is Jace, then it makes sense to wasteland on our turn, so that they can't just, play it. And given the nature of this game, we don't have any pressure. We definitely don't want to let them get any looks with Sensei's Divining Top. So our cards are coming off in the right order. And now we just kind of have to hope that they don't hit any brainstorms or lands to set up terminus or verdict. Unfortunately, they have a brainstorm, so the terminus in their hand is coming off the top of their deck right now. No? That seems odd. Verdict neither. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm fine having Ponder as the top card of my deck. What in the world? Yeah, I mean, can't imagine that. Okay, so Terminus was second down, for whatever reason. So we Ponder, hit a Delver and a Daze. Daze not very good against 5 lands, but this, actually none of it's good. I don't like any of it. I would like to shuffle. That's what we're talking about. Crows and Grip number 2. Come on down. So they verdict here. I think at this point, since we just flat out want to draw non-lands, we're willing to shuffle our deck for the very marginal value add. I mean, it's probably just wrong. I'm probably just being impulsive, but it feels so good. But yeah, cracking that fetch land was bad. It was bad, don't do it. It loses you more games than it wins you. Wasteland enters the revealed card zone. I would not like to reveal this card. I would like to take out as many of their white sources as possible, with the sincerest hope that the end result is that they cannot miracle entreat the angels. Rats. I would like to reveal Spell Pierce. That was actually like a really big deal because it means that Batterskull can't block, and then us Crows and Gripping it is just the difference between not lethal and lethal. So yes, Crows and Grip, quite good. Can't counterspell that one, and that's game. That is how you beat miracles in the incredibly long game. It is possible. You can do it. And it's part of why I like leaving in Jaces, is because in those sorts of drawn-out games, Jace with, like, 2 mana up is an absolute game breaker, whereas, you know, most other things are, they're whatever. But having more threats against Rug is a big deal, because as you saw, we got to just sort of sit back and play the game on our time frame. And, like, we did run really good drawing perfect answers to, like, what they top decked, but that they didn't have anything super consequential was a big deal. So, there you go. That's the deck that I would play in Somerset this weekend. Look at it. Look at it. And if you have any questions, leave them in the forums. I wish you the best of luck at the Invitational if you're attending. And I will see you next week.